Well, hello, and welcome to another Chatting It Up with CJ. That's me. And I'm so glad that you decided to join me on this adventure of caregiving. And today is something special because I actually have an in studio guest. I'd like you to welcome Annette Romero to our studio. And hi, Lynette. Lynette.
Okay, we're starting off on the wrong foot here.
That's okay. I'm keeping it in. Well, the thing, there you are.
I'm here.
You know,
I can be Lynette, I can be Suzette, Auntiette, but I can be Annette right now.
Well, you know, the good thing about it is at least you didn't come on and have a look on your face like,
who's that?
Nobody would ever guess that we've known each other for decades. Yeah. But, you know, the reason why you're here is because I found it so interesting that even when we tried to remember, here we're talking to each other, trying to remember how the heck did we connect? And the reason that we have the common connection is her husband is my immigrant cousin. And a lot of times when people look at the past videos that I've done, I made reference that my parents immigrated to this country and they had their own collective amount of people, friends and associates that they met here and created relationships. Well, when I was born, these people existed and they became my aunts and uncles. She ended up marrying my immigrant cousin. So that's what the connection is.
Yeah, I call it an intermingle in extended family.
Of course, yeah. But it's our Indo family, right. You know, and your husband has, you know, his parents have been key in my life since I was, well, basically a thought. So, and here I am.
There you go.
Look at the reason why I've asked you to join in on this interview is because we have something so in common, but I never in a million years thought that we would be traveling the same road or even how it began. Do you remember how it began?
Yeah, it was about 2019 is the year that my mom had a very big monumental fall, which was a big change in her health history and her journey. And at the same time, my father was exhibiting what I thought was signs of dementia. And I was in a panic because I had agreed to be their financial power of attorney for health and as well, you know, anything advocating for their care. So financial power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney for both at the same time.
Well, let me interrupt you right there. You were taking care of your mom or your dad or both, because you started out talking about your mom having a fall.
Right. So I'm taking care of both.
Okay.
It basically started in 2016, but it was an easier time to take care of because it was just my mom. But when she fell in 2019, and it was a very big problem. And that's when I noticed my dad was no longer, he was having difficulties. And I think subconsciously he recognized that things were changing for her. And I clearly thought she was going to pass away a few months after this major fall. And he was completely different. And she had one set of comorbidities or health issues that were not remotely close to what my dad was starting to have. And so I had to always change my focus on health issues for my mom, treat her a little bit differently than how I was treating my dad. So I was becoming completely overwhelmed with the responsibility of advocating for my parents during this time. And through the family connection, I found out that you were taking care of your dad who was having, starting to have health issues. And so I wanted to connect with you to find out how you were handling these changes for your dad. And I'm not sure if you were planning on moving him with you at that juncture, but I wanted to know how you were handling working, taking care of a business, and handling your health.
Well, the interesting thing is in We're talking 2016, right?
2016 for me is when it started.
That's funny because 2016 is when I started noticing that my mom was having issues. And even though she was having issues, I was not really intently caring for her because I was taking care of my dad at the time.
Right.
And gradually he progressed. He lasted 4 years later because he passed in 2020. He never had any cognitive issues, but his body was breaking down because of kidney disease, renal failure.
Right.
And then it just triggered it's weird, but when they get to that point, it's like a domino effect. Other things start breaking down and such. But it wasn't until my dad passed away in 2020 that my mom fell and hit her head, and that was in 2019. And that's when my dementia caregiving started, because I didn't even know she had been diagnosed with a form of dementia. And I didn't know anything about dementia, nothing. But even when you called me about my dad, I had no idea that you were in this
parallel universe.
that you were, because let's be honest, even though we've been in each other's lives for
on and off here and there
decades,
yeah,
we had no idea. We didn't keep in touch enough to know that we were even going through these things. And I was so wrapped up in that. And Deborah was helping me at the time with my dad. We took him everywhere. We just took care of him, and he still had all his appointments in San Diego, which is 45 minutes away. Right. Let's get it straight. You're totally in another state.
Right. Well, and I called not necessarily to commiserate, but we ended up commiserating together because we discovered that we were dealing with both parents declining. And for different reasons. Your situation was polar opposite as mine. My mother fell and hit her head, and that's what started it. But then, my dad's dementia kicked in right about the same time. And I said, they've been married for, at that time, nearly 70 years at that point.
So wait, you're, let me understand this. Your mom fell, hit her head.
Right.
Your dad has dementia.
Right. But I figured there was something going on, but I hadn't gotten a diagnosis for him. Dementia was a whole new spectrum for me. I didn't know anything about it and how it affects people.
So you learned about dementia through your father.
My dad. My mom was still sharp as a tack.
Did he go to a neurologist to get checked out? Like, did you know, was he on people talk about stages.
Yeah. We just noticed complete behavior changes. And COVID was the
oh, that's right.
The curtain opening to me completely understanding what was going on with my father. And I had at that time been 100% focused on my mother. He was kind of in the peripheral, and I'll take care of dad too. But I thought she was worse off than my dad. And COVID happened. My sister called me up. Now, that's a very fortunate situation I had. My sister was living with my parents. So although she was working full time, she was caring for them in their home. She called me up and said, hey, I think dad's got pneumonia. So at that time, the hospitals were closed. The urgent cares were not allowing anybody to walk through the doors.
Boy, do I know this whole COVID. Yeah.
So it was a drive up and a diagnosis from their front door. And they checked him out, the nurses, and I knew he wasn't feeling very good. So the nurses said, hey, take him to this particular hospital. They're only ones that are accepting patients at this time. So I took him. My sister met me there, and I brought my satchel.
What's the satchel?
The satchel is copies of their living will, their last will and testament, their healthcare power of attorney, financial power of attorney, their current spreadsheet for their medications.
Oh, good.
You know,
A lot of people forget that part.
and then a list of health history documented what year and what month the diagnosis happened. Like my dad was diagnosed, for example, vagal, like syncope, many cases of syncope, and we're not sure exactly what was causing that.
Hmm.
And we thought perhaps he was having little TIAs also, but that
Those are mini
mini
strokes
strokes,
for
right?
people that are not familiar with that.
So we took him to the hospital, and he was completely unrecognizable personality-wise. And he was supposed to stay overnight for observation, and he had to get tested for COVID, and they wanted to keep him there 24 hours for that
Did they
COVID.
let you in?
I only got as far as the emergency room, and I couldn't touch anything. I had to wear a mask and everything. But
Oh my
and
God, at least they let you in.
Yeah.
I had to drop my dad off at the curb.
but I had to, that's as far as I got, and then they told me to go home. They sent me, I said, but he was beside himself. He was
Right.
not himself.
Right.
And then the next morning, the hospital called me, the nursing staff called me and said, "You're going to have to come get your dad." And I said, "Why?" And they said, "Because he is completely belligerent. He is out of his mind."
Wow.
And when I got there, they said, "You need to take your dad in for to be checked for dementia, because he exhibiting all kinds of signs of a very severe case of
So
dementia."
this is the first time that you're hearing that your dad
Dad has-
has any type of cognitive issues that
Correct.
need to be dealt with.
Correct.
Well, you know what? Kudos to the hospital for even recognizing that, because a lot of times people don't even know what they're dealing with.
Correct. Yeah,
Wow.
and it was a whole new realm for me. So I've got my mom who's having her issues, all kinds of health problems, and then I've got somebody who my mom is completely with it, and then I discover my dad's not with it, and I was like, how did we not know that he had dementia? Well, he was living at home, and he had this known environment, the house that he'd been in since 1950.
Right.
So he had all the same correct clues to get him around the house and maneuver and live normally.
Right.
Well, at the hospital, he had no landmarks, nothing normal, and it produced a very different person. And so that's when I started to research dementia and how it affected him and my mom, because my mom thought, well, he shouldn't be acting that way. And I said, well, Mom, he's got a memory problem. She didn't understand that. So she had expectations about how he should be. Well, and she would tell him, Louis, stop what you're doing. And
Wow.
yeah, and so she didn't understand that. So that's when I started with the neurology. I was told I first had to take him to the PCP, and then I took him to the neurology. We went through a bunch of round and round, and that's when I discovered in one of those exams, I'm sitting across from him, and the doctor said, "Do you know who that is?" And he said, "Well, it's my daughter." And the doctor said, "Well, what's her name?" And he said, "I have no idea." And I was crushed, absolutely crushed. And that's when I realized uh, my dad's struggling. My dad is struggling with his memory, and it's going to affect everything.
Let me ask you this then. Okay, so you're aware that dementia's in play. At this point, you don't even know at what level.
Correct.
But you know that it's significant enough that it's noticeable. And he knows something's not right. Your mom knows something's not right.
Correct.
And you're the only person besides your parents that is aware of that at this point.
Well, my sister had suspicions. My brother didn't really think about it, but he started going with me to some of these doctor's appointments after he retired in
That's good.
Early 2019, and he started to get the full picture of what was going on with my mom's issues and then my dad's.
So you have good family support.
I was lucky in that respect.
That's great.
Yeah, but the burden of, they all turned to me because I had the final say as to what was supposed to happen with my parents, financially and healthcare wise. So I had to really balance my responsibilities for both of them, and I had to handle them differently. And I basically had to walk a fine line with caring for my dad. But he towards the end, he was very passive about his situation. And every time we took him to a doctor, he would like, oh, thank you, mijito, for taking me. I really do appreciate it. And I said, Dad, you took care of us kids for years and years and years. Now it's our turn to take care of you. And same thing for my mom. My mom would be very appreciative of us taking them
Now
to the doctors.
let's jump up a little bit ahead of time.
Okay.
Okay. The journey of dementia, which I'm aware of, and majority of the people that would be watching this video they would stop and watch this because they're dealing with dementia or trying to learn about maybe their loved one as to what they're going through. With that being said, you've learned that your dad is dealing with dementia. He has signs of it, and your mom is there. I'm going to do what I need to do. You have family support. What, 3 siblings, right?
Well, 2 siblings in town.
Okay.
Another sibling was very supportive, living in another state.
Okay. All right. So you have help from family.
Right.
But what you don't know is that while you're going through the caregiving journey, and anybody that's going through caregiving knows, you go through different levels, different stages of dementia. The sad thing about dementia is we all know there's no cure for it, and it gets progressively worse.
Yep.
And you're literally, depending on what type of dementia you might have, everybody's familiar with Alzheimer's, and it's not to minimize Alzheimer's, but that's just one facet of dementia. You have no idea that your challenges are going to become more and more intense as time goes and difficult. So what time frame, what span of time are we talking for your dad?
So from 2020 through 2022, January of 2022, I had to have a final geriatric psychiatry assessment. And then she was going to give me, this particular doctor was going to give me the type of diagnosis of the type of dementia that he had, which was very up there. She says he's just a hair close to being first stage or second stage of Alzheimer's. And so she said, you need to prepare him. And that is where the difficulty became more and more intense, because I had to make decisions as the power of attorney for healthcare decisions as well as financial. So
how did your mom deal with that, knowing that she
really couldn't help, because by that time she had slowed down quite a bit. She recovered from the fall from 2019, but she was on lots of meds, limited, activity. And then we've got, the COVID thing going on and all the protocols that were in place for that. And that was another obstacle to overcome for their care. And I felt like I was stymied. And it was like, this is making it far worse to advocate for them, this darn COVID.
So you were working during this time frame, if I remember.
I was working, and I was trying to balance my personal work life balance to include the desires of my parents. So when I took over as power of attorney, their advocate, I ceased to be daughter. I ceased to be sister. I ceased to be aunt. I no longer felt I had a familial status with my parents. I felt like I was kind of like an outsider for their care. And I was making all these important decisions. And while I was making all these important decisions, I want to make my parents happy. I want to make sure they're safe. I want to make sure they're content, and their desire was to stay in their home because they wanted to pass away in their home of, at that time, 72 years at that point. And
Dang.
yeah, they'd been, when my dad passed away, they would have had their 73rd wedding anniversary.
So, but he was able to pass away at the house?
He did pass away at the house in June of 23. It was very peaceful.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it was. He grabbed my mom. He said, "I don't feel very good. Come lay down with me." And they were chatting, and he passed away.
No way.
It almost was like The Notebook.
That gives me
Yeah,
chills.
yeah. But my mom was funny. She got up to go because I had caregivers in the house while we were working.
Hmm.
She went to the caregiver. She goes, "I don't know what's wrong with him."
Why would you say?
And the caregiver told her, "Well, Martha, Martha, he's passed away." She goes,
What's wrong with?
she was funny, but she goes, she was just like, Louis.
Well, you know what? Because we always say the best way to pass away is just to drift away and fall asleep.
And they were chatting. They were chatting, and
Imagine how she felt. She's like, "I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you," and he's not answering back.
yeah,
I'm taking a long siesta.
yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
we were en route when that occurred. We were en route to go check on Roy's family. I wanted a respite. I wanted to get away. And
Man, I didn't realize
yeah,
that's how he passed.
and the day before, I had spent the entire day with them. We
Hmm.
had some work done at the house. And at the end, after the workers left, I said, "Hey, I didn't really get to spend Father's Day with you. And Mother's Day went by too fast because there was a lot going on."
Yeah.
And I said, "How about if I take you guys to eat an early dinner?"
Hmm.
And I said, "What do you want, Dad?" And he goes, "Well, I haven't had this particular restaurant in Tucson." And he goes, "I haven't had their tacos in about 5 years." I don't know if that was the truth or not, but I said, "Well, you want tacos?"
It's
And
his truth.
it's his truth. He goes, "You want tacos?" And my mom, "Oh, that sounds really, really good." So I took him to dinner at this restaurant, one of their favorite restaurants, and
But he remembered it.
he did. He did remember it, and he didn't finish, but that was I told him, "Hey, I'm gonna take you home. My sister will be home soon, and she'll take care of you the rest of the evening. I'm gonna take off because we're packed and ready to go to California to go check on my mother-in-law
Hmm.
and family." And we were en route. Had almost gotten to the California border. On I-10, and I got the call from the caregiver that my dad had passed away. And of course, I fell apart right there on the road, freaked Roy out.
Yeah.
But we were able to turn around.
Did we ever say where you're from?
Tucson.
Okay.
Tucson.
Yeah, because people are going, "Wait a minute, she's on the 10 freeway. She's going where?"
Yeah. Yeah. Come from Tucson. So we were like generally 4 hours into our road trip.
And your parents they were in Tucson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Definitely. And so, I'm bawling all the way home, and Roy's keeping it together and getting us home safely. But we got home, and I grabbed that satchel because I knew I was going to have to talk to whoever. But I think the hardest part of doing all this, like I said, it's I didn't really feel like I was the daughter. I really felt like I was some hired help.
It is. It wears on you.
Yeah, it
and
does.
people don't realize that when you have people don't realize that when you are a caregiver,
Give up a lot.
you give up a lot, but you also sacrifice yourself in your health.
Exactly.
And I think that's the thing that's being brought to the forefront, especially with Emma Hemming Willis, who's Bruce Willis's wife. She just released a book a couple of weeks ago. And it's somewhere around 63 or 67% of caregivers fall ill, and actually their health is so compromised that they have a chance of passing away due to health issues prior to the very person that they're taking care of, because they neglect themselves. And the attention that you're supposed to have, so that you're of sound health and you're cognitively sound and well rested, and everything else that goes into to maintaining your health as a caregiver gets forfeited, and you have to be 110% for that person.
Right. And those decisions, I'm not sure how many of your listeners or followers are just a caregiver, or are they a caregiver and the financial power of attorney or the healthcare power of attorney at the same time? And
A lot of them don't know about it.
and I I didn't realize how much legality goes with the responsibility of being a power of attorney.
Well, let me just throw this in there, because a lot of people that I have spoken to that are in the beginning stages of caregiving for a dementia patient, or it doesn't even have to be dementia.
Mhm.
If you're a caregiver for anybody that needs help,
Right.
if you're compromised in your faculties, they're not going to allow you to have these documents in place. These are decisions that have to be made before you are compromised.
Yeah,
You know?
my parents asked me as early as 2004. And of course, they were in perfect health at that time. And I think they realized, here they are in their retirement years, we need to plan. And
Right.
so they
Right.
pulled me into a little family meeting and say, "Hey, this is what we want. Can you do it?" And of course, I love my parents. And I was like, of course I'm
Are
going
you
to
the
help.
eldest?
No, I'm the middle child. I'm the middle
Wow.
kid.
So they know their children enough to who to ask.
Yeah. So I fully accepted the responsibility, but I did not realize the magnitude of being a power of attorney, financial and healthcare. I was told years later that
Mhm.
that's kind of like a not a normal thing. Usually, one child is assigned healthcare or financial, and then another person may be doing responsible for the financial. It was a major undertaking on my part, and I took it seriously, and I wanted to do right by my
But
parents.
you want to honor
You
them.
want to honor them, exactly,
Mhm.
exactly, and I didn't want to disappoint them either. And so I literally thought of things, and I would lose sleep. I'd wake up in the middle of the night going, okay, I got to solve this little problem, because if I
Mhm.
don't fix this, this will happen. And when my mom got admitted to hospice in 2021, my dad was in still good health physically. I mean, he up until the few days before he passed away, he was still doing wall push-ups and
What?
yes, deep knee bends, and he had those little things to strengthen your hand.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know what they're called,
Grippies.
grippies, whatever. He
Yeah.
was doing those every day, and he had little barbells, and he was still exercising. So
Are you sure he had Alzheimer's?
no, not Alzheimer's, dementia. He was on the cusp of Alzheimer's, is what I
Okay.
understood from the geriatric
Okay.
psychiatrist. But I lost my train of thought. Oh,
That's okay.
but
We can come back to
yeah,
it.
so I'll pick it back up. Maybe, I don't know, tomorrow.
Well, no, that's so let me since we're in this impasse, if you will.
Yeah.
Your dad ended up passing away. What happened to your mom?
She was completely cognitive of that situation
Okay.
for 2 weeks. And then during that first week after he passed away, I was taking care of her. I was spending the day with her, and she turned to me and she said, "Well, I guess I am a widow." And I said, "Yes, you are."
Mm.
And then the following week, complete 100% change. She was just totally lost, and she was looking for him, and she was, "Where did your father go?" And I was like, what happened to that person who recognized the fact that she was now widowed?
In less than a month, this happened?
2 weeks. 2 weeks is when we noticed that, even at the memorial service, the celebration of life, which was, I want to say, almost 3 weeks after he'd passed. Um, Afterwards, she she asked somebody asked, "Well, what did you think of the services, Mom?" She goes, "Well, it was beautiful, but who was it for?" Yeah, and I was like, "Well, Dad." It was for Dad.
Are you kidding me?
No, it had a naval honor guard. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful service. But
Wait
after.
a minute. I'm trying to. I'm sorry. I'm trying to wrap my head around this. Your mom was fine after your dad passed away.
Mhm. fully aware that he had passed away. She got
2 weeks
angry.
later, she is showing signs of,
Dementia.
and was that
They did. I didn't really get a firm diagnosis for that with hospice until about a year and a half later, and they told me it was vascular dementia that my mom was suffering from. But she held it
I mean,
together.
just like that?
Yeah.
Like, boom.
Yeah, and they told me that she held it together because she knew my dad was ill. So she was gonna, what do you
I've
call it?
never,
Yeah, where they say they rally, the patients rally and improve. So mentally, she had short-term memory loss and all that, and we thought she might have dementia. I had to take away the checkbook away from her because she was doing very strange things with that.
right.
But yeah, they told me that yeah, she had vascular dementia, but it was exacerbated by the passing of my dad.
See, this is the weird thing.
Yeah.
My dad passed away in 2020, November,
Hmm.
December, January. My mom fell in February, the beginning of February. And when I realized that my mom fell and she was acting bizarre, it was almost like the knowledge of my dad's passing. Mind you, they've been divorced for some time.
Hmm.
But I think the shock of it all
Yeah.
threw her into this weird,
State of mind.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like my mom was never quite the same, and whatever little bits and pieces of cognitive impairment, short-term memory, I'd have good days where she would be okay, and then I'd have days where every 5 minutes she'd ask me the same darn question.
Hmm.
I
Well,
I don't understand that, but it's like your mom holds her stuff together and then he passes away and then it's like she's unrecognizable.
yeah, it was like the snap of a finger.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a snap of a finger, and that's when I knew I was it was a challenge. It was a challenge
Dang.
to take care of my dad's taking care of the responsibility of his passing. I had,
Right.
I was doing all that in between working, and and then I ran into all kinds of financial problems with his things, and
Mm.
I had to run the gauntlet for that. And then I really didn't get any of that stuff finalized until like February of 2024. But that's when I noticed my mom was just, really, really going downhill. And
Yeah, the people that are left with the gift of being executor of estates,
mm,
I don't think people really understand how much time that takes
oh
and
yeah,
what is required of that.
right,
Because when I was gifted that, I'm still dealing with stuff, and my mom had passed in June of last year,
right.
and I'm still dealing with remnants of that.
Well, I think, part of this whole journey of me taking care of the folks
Mhm.
was the difficulty of being this outside body or advocate, outside advocate,
Mhm.
not the daughter, not the sister, not the auntie. It was this person who was, I don't want to use the word shackled, but shackled with the responsibility of making sure all those desires and needs were met.
Mhm.
For my dad, the finalizing my dad's things after his death, and then at the same time making sure that I'm still advocating for my mother. And it was difficult. It was difficult because I had to talk to hospice social workers. I had to talk to their attorney. I had to keep everybody in the loop that helped me make these decisions. And I'll tell you, some of these decisions were extremely difficult.
Mhm.
Even if it was like taking away a particular medication for my mom during this whole process. Your mother doesn't need this medication, so stop it. And I was like, well, you know, shouldn't she still be taking it? And then a lot of times I would doubt myself, doubt my decisions. And luckily, I have a wonderful spouse who's very, very supportive throughout this whole journey
Right.
as caregiver and at the same time POA. That just was a huge, huge responsibility to deal with, and then still go to work. still be the happy person at work,
Hmm.
because I worked front office at a dental office, and you had to be joyful or very pleasant.
Perky.
Perky is a good word. You had to be on the ball and not let anybody know that your heart's breaking. Your mind
Right.
is breaking. Your emotions are a total wreck. But you had to put on a good front. And all the while that's going on, I'm trying to advocate for my mother,
Hmm.
and I'm making decisions that just went against everything you want for a loved one. It's like, do I put her in a home? Do I, well, I can't think of, just
Well,
all
no,
these
look at
weird
all
things.
these decisions that you're now faced with, things that you need to resolve.
Right. Right.
You're in the balance of thinking, am I making the right choice or not? And when I'm part of a group called Dementia Blazers, and it's out of Phoenix, Arizona. It's headed up by Dr. Natalie Edmonds.
Mhm.
And the thing about that I see that's a recurring conversation, especially with people that are new to the program. Even though my mom has passed, I'm still part of the group, and I'm helping out the new people that um, come into the fold, if you will, because they're completely lost, and I recognize exactly what they're feeling.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
a
hard.
lot of them are saying, "I have this enormous amount of guilt because I don't know if the decision I'm making is a wise decision. Am I going against honoring my parents' wishes or my husband or my wife's, wishes? I'm trying to do the best, but I feel like I'm losing myself in the process.
Yeah.
And I can't seem to regulate, if I make this choice, is it the right choice? If that happens, if this happens. And not only that, everybody's got an opinion.
Correct. And,
Holy
and
moly,
and
everybody's got
and
an
that's
opinion.
that's a previous conversation I had with you, is that I always felt like whatever POA decisions I had to make to advocate for my parents, I always felt like I was getting on the merry-go-round. I would go round and round and round trying to make these decisions, up, down, and around. And while I'm doing
Hmm.
this ride of indecision, decision, what to do,
Hmm.
um, I'm a people pleaser, so I'm always trying to think, well, I got to do this decision I make. I have to make my parents happy. I
Right.
have to make sure the decision I make is going to make them safe. And at the same time, if I make this decision, how will anybody else interpret this decision? Will they interpret this as being mean and
Hmm.
insensitive or
Hmm.
uncaring? And, I, I worried about what everybody else thought when I made these decisions. And my husband would tell me, he says, do what you've got to do
Yeah.
and don't worry about
Oops.
what anybody else thinks you're doing.
Right.
You are advocating for your parents. You are the one in charge. You are the one they picked to take care of them, because they knew at some point in their life they would not be able to make
And
proper decisions.
that's the hard part that a lot of people on the outside don't understand.
Mhm.
Because when you're selected to do that, you take on the role and say, "Yeah, I'm going to do that." But when
Mhm.
you're actually in it, it's a whole different thing that you didn't even fathom on, because nobody ever takes under consideration how you feel while
Mhm.
you're going through this, or the emotions that you have to go through to resolve what's at stake, what's at hand. And it's not just them. You got to take care of yourself. Not only that, when you sacrifice yourself to care for the people that you love,
Mhm.
there's also people that you're sacrificing in that act
Right.
of love and honor, because you're actually sacrificing yourself
While you make that decision.
while you're making this decision and you're moving through this journey. A lot of people don't understand that. Even I figured that out. At one point, I even wanted to have my own family understand what I was going through, but it wasn't until way after
Mhm.
of caregiving, after my mom and dad had passed away, that I realized what you are searching for, they will never understand because they were never in your shoes.
Right. Right. And
They never walked the path.
and my thing was, if I make this decision, what's the blowback? What what pushback am I going to get? It, you know, And that's the thing. The merry-go-round was also to make sure everybody's going to be content and happy with the decision I make.
But you
And
know what? I think you may have learned this, and you, correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes you just can't please everyone.
right, right.
You have to do, as the primary caregiver, as the person that's been designated to be that person for your loved ones, you actually have to be good with your decision and say, hey, I'm doing the best that I can, and just let that sit
Yeah.
because it will eat you up.
Yeah. So January of this year is, everything came to a pinnacle peak, if you wish, if you
Mm.
will. I knew after Christmas that I had to make a decision because it got to the point where although my mom wanted to pass away in her home, that was her desire, her wish, and I never promised that to her. I always told her, I said, Mom, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you get what you want. I said, but if it cannot happen, I'm, you made me power of attorney. I may have to make decisions based on what's happening.
Did she understand?
I don't think she did. She would nod, but I think deep down she knew, and I'll follow up with a story on that. But I had to make that decision, and um, I had to get everybody, the family on board with what I was going to do. But we could no longer, the house was from 1950 and it's not set up for ADA for,
Okay, got it.
disability. So it was very difficult to take care of her. And it got to the point where she was pretty fearful about being moved around the house. And I thought, this is not keeping her safe and this is not keeping her content. She's terrified.
Yeah.
And so I picked an assisted living and we got her moved first part of right after my birthday in February. And that was a tough one. I basically beat up on myself for making that decision. I felt extremely guilty. I felt like I disappointed her in some way by not granting that last desire before passing. But ultimately, it relieved all of us from the stress of caring for her.
So, you made the hard decision, and this is a very common thing in caregiving,
Mm-hmm.
is deciding when is the right time, or should I even move them into an assisted living facility? And a lot of times people want to do what's best, but we find out 9 times out of 10, and even it's being brought up recently with Emma Willis's new release, people wait way too long.
Right, right.
And there's a lot of unnecessary stress and who knows what else goes on in their life that they place on themselves just to honor your loved one.
Well, one of the things that was a backlash to me emotionally, one of the visits that I had, and I mentioned this at my mom's celebration of life, that where I put my mom, I was worried about the medicines. I was worried about this. I was worried about that. And then the house manager pulled me aside. She goes, "Look, you don't need to worry about anything. All I want you to do is go be a daughter now. Go hang out with your mom, visit with her, be silly, you know, be the person you were before you became power of attorney."
That's so sweet.
Yeah. And so she goes, "You are relieved from duty," is what she told me.
Wow.
And I cannot praise this woman. And then she had a phenomenal staff. But one of the visits that I had was I went there. My mom had just had her shower and she was in her room. I walked in and I said, "Hey, Mom, how you doing?" She goes, "Now what?" And I was like, so I know deep down inside, she knew I was making these decisions and she was there because of me. And at that moment, she was not too happy with me. And I was like, "Hey, I'm here to see you. Isn't that good?" And she goes, "Yeah, yeah." But, it made me feel very, very small. And I felt like at that moment, I was not a daughter. I was that darn POA advocate who, she didn't appreciate that advocate.
She should be happy that you were the power of attorney.
It was tough. And then one of the last things, about 6 or 7 weeks before she passed away, I went there to visit her and she leaned over to me. She says, "Can you do me a favor?" And I said, "What's that?" She goes, "Put me in the car and take me." I was like, "I can't even pick you up."
You know what's weird?
she wanted to go for a car ride. And
That's
I
sweet.
couldn't even grant her that wish because at
Mhm.
that point, she was dead weight. And even the caregivers, it was a two-person team to get her from a chair to a wheelchair. So,
Girlfriend, dead weight is a real thing.
yeah,
And let me tell you, I was in that same predicament. I couldn't do
yeah,
unless I had help.
yeah. So, yeah, so,
But they do. They ask for that. Take me for a car ride.
yeah,
My mom just loved
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So I physically, I just, I guess I could have, after, as an afterthought, I just, instead of saying, yeah, mom, we could do that. I
Hmm.
didn't placate her. I told her the truth and I said, Mom, I can't get you in and out of the car.
Hmm.
And she kind of shrugged her shoulders. But,
Hmm.
you know, that, those two events during that whole tenure with the assisted living,
Hmm.
um, it was difficult.
Yeah.
And in that interim, I had to switch hospice companies because I felt like my concerns and my advocacy for my mom was just not being met with the original
I'm
hospice.
glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
glad you brought that up because that comes up quite a bit in my grief group. I do lead a grief group, and there's people in there that don't realize you're hiring that hospice
company.
company.
Yeah.
They still get paid, and that's why they're vying for your they
Patient.
yeah, I don't even know how to say it
Yeah.
properly,
Your
but
lived one.
you can switch.
Yes.
It's unfortunate because you don't want to go through all that stuff because a lot of the burdens put on you having to go through the process again and just the things that you need to go through. But if you're not satisfied, then switch.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, and shame on them for not properly, but good on you for recognizing that they're falling short.
Well, and this is where I think God works in mysterious ways because the day that I was commiserating with the house manager and
Hmm.
telling her, I said, I don't understand why I can't, get this issue resolved with the
Hmm.
current company.
Hmm.
And I said, she was kind, she was listening to me, and in walks this other lady, and she goes, "Oh, by the way, this lady is from, X,
Hmm.
another hospice company," and the lady goes, "Well, lay it on me. What's the problem?" I was like,
But you know what? That's almost what you want.
so I said, well, I just, finished the story with the house manager. I said, but this is what
Yeah.
I'll share with you. And I told her what I was concerned about. She goes,
Right.
oh, we can address that.
That's
And I said,
awesome.
yeah. And so, and that's how I ended up, you know, switching hospice companies.
Mhm.
And she made it so easy peasy, just
Good
for
for
me.
you.
But I think serendipity and God's hand, I really believe that these decisions that I made on behalf of my parents, you know, you're going to always second guess yourself,
Absolutely.
always, always, always.
Even after the fact.
Yeah. And, my husband, biggest supporter is like, you're doing what your parents asked you to do. Don't doubt what you're doing. Don't sweat these small things. Let it go. Let it
Right.
go.
Right.
And, so after my mom passed away this past June, I mean, I did throw a big party for her when she turned 97. So um, that was fun.
Hmm.
And then she let go after that. I think that was a milestone that she wanted to reach
Right.
personally. And it was tough, but
Wow.
but I I always tell people, they always say, "Oh, your parents were married for almost 73 years." And yes, they're loving people.
Hmm.
And they always say, "Well, you were blessed." And I was like, "Well, correction. We were blessed to have them as parents, but we were very lucky to have them as long as we did."
Yeah.
Very fortunate because a lot of my friends that I grew up with, their parents had passed away, a long time ago,
Hmm.
and they're raising their kids, and there's no grandma and grandpa,
That's true. That's
and
true.
and
Yeah.
my child is going to be 30 this year, and she definitely knew my parents quite well, and that's why I said we're very lucky we had them for as long as we did. My dad,
Grandparents,
yeah,
it's a rarity and it is a blessing to have them because that that generational gap once it's there,
hmm
it's really hard to have that connection.
well. your parents and my parents are from the greatest generation, and they're
Yeah.
a different breed of individuals.
Yeah.
Very grounded
Very
and
much.
very loving, funny. I don't, that generation just cracks me up.
So let me ask you this, Annette, as we wrap things up.
Okay.
What's the one you've gone from taking care of your dad, learning that he has Alzheimer's. You've gone all the way through to his passing, taking care of your mother who has sudden, like extreme dementia.
Turnabout. Yeah.
Vascular is one of the, to me, it's difficult because you're dealing with such jagged edges in a personality, and up into her passing.
Right.
What's the one takeaway that you want to share with other caregivers that find themselves in this, I call it a sudden caregiver mode, because nobody plans on this?
No, no. I think in my case, you become a child of parents,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe a spouse. It is sudden, and you take it on wholehearted because you love that person or
Right.
persons. In my case, it was the added responsibility of being the power of attorney for everything, everything. And that was a huge yoke that I took on, yes, but I wanted to do it right. I wanted to make sure that I took care of my parents in the right way. And even though I vacillated with making the right decision after talking to attorney, after talking to social workers, after talking to the nurses, after talking to the doctors, am I making this best decision for my parents? And in the long run, go with your instincts, your very first instincts, because I know the man upstairs, God is talking to you and giving you the green light for these decisions. And don't let anybody else question your decision-making process when it comes to caring for a loved one.
Amen.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I agree with you 100%. A lot of people, they will always almost get into analysis paralysis and then never make a decision.
Yep.
And it is very, very difficult.
It's difficult.
Well, I just want to thank you for taking the time to share such a personal story
Well, thank you.
about,
Thank you.
and unfortunately, it's becoming something that's being common in discussion. And I'm hoping that somehow by sharing our stories, that it helps someone else that might be on that journey and not knowing where they're going to be heading, but to at least know that, hey, we made it through. Now we're reinventing ourselves. We're picking up the pieces and hopefully
Right.
a little bit more at peace.
Yep.
Right?
That's what I'm searching for.
Me too.
I'm okay with what I did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. And for everyone else, I thank you for tuning in, and I thank you for checking out Chatting It Up. And I hope that you learned something from this. Do me a favor, if this is something that you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe, and leave me a comment, or leave a comment for Annette, because we'd love to hear what you have to say. And I'm always looking at those comments and ready to answer and maybe even help you out. And check the comments below for any resources that we may have mentioned if you need to have some information, but we're always here for you. In the meantime, be blessed and always be good to yourself.
For sure.
Bye. Hey, thanks for watching. And please remember to hit the subscribe button. We are trying to grow our channel and reach 1,000 subscribers. Now, for every new subscriber, these two nutheads right here, they're going to get a treat, so we will all be happy. Thanks for watching.